Hey there, this is AndyZemon at VAhomes Mortgage. I wanted to walk you briefly through a problem we fixed last month, purely because from an illustration standpoint, it's really critical that people understand, especially if you're a realtor or you're a potential home buyer or you are a home buyer and you're going through this process. In my experience, most loans that we find that don't work someplace, it's usually mistakes or lack of programs or lack of creativity and options that exist in the mortgage professional side. So that goes for problems that we've solved, maybe problems that we've created on our own, and then we've thought through and been able to solve them. We have to get a little creative in that case. Or in this case, this happened to be a buyer that unfortunately was on their last straw. They thought they were going to have to void a contract because they couldn't get the cash to close, and emotionally the payment was uncomfortable for them. So let me walk you through this. So they came to me again, last straw. They were thinking, in fact, they were about 20 days from closing, and they were really thinking about how to exit the contract. They were pretty serious about it. So the way that the previous lender had their file set up, there was nothing wrong with it. I jokingly call it the vanilla mortgage. It was a traditional FHA loan. Interest rate wasn't bad as far as market conditions go. They were putting 3.5% down. They were going to carry a payment with taxes and insurance of about $2,027 a month. You'll see that number right down there in the payment section. And then the cash to close was sitting at about $17,000 after they had paid a $3,000 earnest money deposit. So total cumulative cost in that case was about 20 grand. The reason for it, the seller would not accept an offer with seller paid closing costs, couldn't structure that into the actual contract. And so they were in a position where they had to pay not only their down payment of 3.5%, but they had to come to the table with their settlement expenses as well. So about $17,000 remaining. And that number was about $5,000 more than they were ever originally comfortable with. They were really struggling for what to do. On top of it, emotionally, they really wanted a payment under $2,000. What did we do in order to fix it? Well, first, I want you to know we used the same FHA program. We didn't do anything any different from a program structure. What we did do, however, was we used dollars creatively. What was not known or what was not noticed is the property actually appraised for $268,000. It didn't appraise for $265,000. So just a hair above the actual listing contract. We were able to roll $3,000 of closing costs into the loan. You'll notice that's why the purchase price on our solution with the grant, our purchase price is $3,000 higher. Now, this is what we refer to as buyer financed closing costs, because the buyer is actually increasing the price of the house in order to roll those costs in. And contrary to popular belief and what the internet and vast majority of America's lenders will tell you, you can do this after the contract is signed and after the appraisal is completed. You can increase that provided the appraisal supports that value. So you'll notice their loan amount as a whole right about in line. Why is that? Well, because we used a grant. So our trick here, our key was we needed to get the payment under $2,000 so emotionally it was comfortable for them. And we needed to get the cash to close under $12,000. What we used our first time homebuyer grant. It's a federal grant that we have. There is limited availability to this and there are some qualification standards. 80% of the AMI is based on household income. So there's a bunch of asterisks to go along with this. In this case, it works for this client. So what we were able to do was we were able to use some of the $10,000 to drive the actual loan amount down just by a little. We were able to use some of the $10,000 in order to drive the interest rate down by about 0.25%. And then we were able to drive the rest of the cash to close down by using the rest of the money. So what we end up with is an $8,386 cash to close after their $3,000 deposit. That's a cumulative total of $11,386, which is less than their $12,000. Very, very doable. They were very happy about this scenario. Interest rate, okay, great. I mean, we're not in 2020. These are normal interest rates that we're looking at for today. But the client was very happy with the fact that their payment as a result fell under $2,000. Now, we used the same FHA program everybody else was going to use. We just used some other tools that the other company didn't explore. And in the end, client gets the home, they closed on time. And as far as the setup goes, for the long term, they're much happier with this overall equation. Their payment's a little bit less. Emotionally, it's very comfortable, and their cash to close was a perfect fit. If you're struggling to get the answers that you feel like you need, or you've got problems, or you're just not getting qualified to the level that you want, I encourage you to visit schedulewithandy.com and let me know. We'll have a conversation about it. No applications needed.